Well, here we are.
Yes, y'all. We're here. Winner's Take, y'all. April 17th.
We are winging it.
Nick Blackman.
Yep. I'm John Watkins. We got Jake Fricker in the house handling
What up?
all kinds of setup and issues and whatever else me and Nick can screw up.
Yep.
We do not have Kevin Kelley. He is at the World Mini GP.
Kevin has gone to Las Vegas, and he's working on another show. It's some kind of Siegfried and Roy type show, I think. Like he's working, he's got the satin suits, pretty tight, like nut hugger suit.
Yes, real tight.
It's cut way low in the front.
Looking good, right?
Nut hug, yeah, with a scar. He's got with an ascot. He's
of
wearing
course,
an
yes.
ascot, yeah. But I think instead of like tigers and lions, he's got otters.
Like seals and
otters and
long, slippery, smooth
beavers,
animals.
maybe, yeah.
Pelted, furry creatures. Kevin's into some weird stuff.
Yeah.
He doesn't care. I don't know that he wants everybody to know it because
it's I
believe we were the only two that
Siegfried and Roy, otter,
classic
European sprockets, EDM type music deal.
A lot of dance beats.
Yes. A lot of funky dance beats.
A lot of slippery animals, wet, slippery animals.
I hope it works out for him.
Hey, I don't care. I'm just glad he's not here. He throws his feet. He basically gave me athlete's counter up here.
Feet meet all over your sink.
Yes, and I really had ideas of putting like super glue down or something, and then when he throws those feet up there.
He can't move anyway, though. He puts his feet up there all naked and such a position that when you poured Fireball all over his feet, he couldn't even move.
Yeah.
Like he couldn't.
When did this happen?
He was just mesmerized one night.
This is before.
So I acted like I was going to fix like a glass of Fireball, but instead I just poured it all over his feet. And he's over the sink, because that's what you do when you're trying to be on a podcast.
When you're relaxing. I'm most relaxed at home when I've got my feet over my sink.
Yes, just soaking in Fireball, absorbing the
nutrients.
Especially
when I'm a guest in someone else's house.
Exactly.
Nothing relaxes me like
it's the only way.
Putting my feet on their kitchen counter.
Just going to their house and kicking your shoes and socks off.
Putting
them in your face, right?
Naked feet all over their counter.
So tonight we are venturing out just a little. We're going to have the executive producer of a movie called Pay Dirt that is coming soon, Paul Taublieb. And we will also have Mitch Covington, who is, I am guessing, the top step of Monster Energy, like the company.
I mean, he's I don't know where he's at.
Vice President of Sales and Marketing.
Yeah, that's
the real deal.
That's pretty high. That's there might be one step above his, right?
I have a Monster Energy drink in his honor.
We're repping. Yeah, we're not Red Bull tonight.
Well, and I think a lot of people are aware of some of Paul's films. I mean, he's been a producer for a long time, and I think a lot of motocrossers are familiar with Mitch Covington because of his son Thomas Covington, who did pretty well here. Got some support as a pro, but went to the GPs. And I think a lot of people probably look at that year. I think it's 2017 Motocross to Nations, Matterley Basin, which is the track me and Nick went to. But it was an absolute. You could barely even watch it. There was so much rain, fog. The track looked terrible. Cole Seeley's shock blew out both motos. I think the team was Cole Seeley, Osborne, and Thomas Covington. They chose Thomas, I believe, based on the fact that he had been riding that track. And Nick, you and I mean, we thought that track was suited to Americans, but when it's knee-deep mud, I don't know if it's suited to anybody.
Part of the problem with that track, part of the problem, which also makes it beautiful to watch, is it's really in a valley. Like it's
a straight up bowl.
It's a bowl. So if it rains there, it's going to turn into a lake. So I could, that year, it wouldn't take much rain, and that thing, it got pretty muddy pretty quick anyway. So,
all right, so we're running behind. I'm gonna go ahead and call Paul. We're gonna hit him right on 7:00. I feel like someone who's in the movie production business probably doesn't play around with being late.
For you guys that maybe you don't know this movie it's been advertised a lot, but it's the Supercross story. Pay Dirt, the Supercross story.
Yeah,
it covers. We got to watch the movie. It is pretty damn cool. I mean, there's some really good footage.
It covers basically the entire history of the sport.
Starts in '72 with.
Mike Goodwin.
That
was probably the most interesting thing for me. So
LA Coliseum.
Yeah. Marty Tripes.
Marty Tripes
as the
Against
child,
odds,
the
against
man
the
child.
He
All right,
was so big.
I'm ringing him.
God, he was massive.
Mug looked 40.
Yeah, a grown man with a beer gut and everything.
First question.
This is Paul.
Hey, Paul. Good afternoon. This is John Watkins calling from Winners Take Y'all. I've got Jake Fricker with me and
What's
Nick
up, man?
Blackman. Is this a good time?
This is great, and I think you're going to be calling Mitch Covington.
Yes, sir.
Yes, we are.
I was gonna add him to the call. If you want to do that right now, I'll go ahead and add him.
Did you want me to add him?
No, I can do it. I can do it right here. If you're ready, I'll add Mitch right now.
I'm ready.
All right, one
Looking
second.
forward to it.
Yep, 1 second.
We got three-way calling, by the way, on our plan.
Big time.
Yeah, we got the upgraded
You
plan.
see that budget?
All right. Hey, Mitch, are you there?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey,
Can you hear me?
I got you loud and clear. Paul, you still there?
I'm still here.
All right. Right
Look at
on.
that. We made it work. Listen, y'all don't know what an accomplishment that is for us to actually
Just to get everybody on at one time.
We got it for us to make three-way calling work. We're
Mitch might have some idea. He's from the South. He's met people dumb as us. I would
yeah,
say.
that's
Hey, no, yeah, I'm right there with you, boys. I tell you, if it's over a three-way call, I don't do it. It's like I can't set it up a Zoom call or anything. I
Well, we barely can. So, hey, I appreciate the time. First of all, I'm John Watkins. I got Jake Fricker with me, Mitch, and then Nick Blackman is the third voice right here. We've taken a look at this pay dirt. I know there's a lot to talk about with both of you, but can we kind of start there? I think we should.
Yeah, go for it.
Yep. Okay. Well, so everyone, I would imagine, you basically hit the entire history of the sport. So I like the old school. I'm always a historian, and I'm always, excited about the past. But man, that Mike Goodwin stuff was incredible, and I was so glad to hear his voice on there. And I mean, who did one of you guys get to talk to him?
All
That was
good.
me. Yeah,
Oh,
I
nice.
spoke to him quite a few times, more than you can imagine.
Well, he still seems like he's a personality bigger than life, even though he's in his current situation. But man, what an honor, I would say, to get to talk to someone who created a sport that is thriving.
Yeah, it was really interesting talking to him. It was always a challenge. One of the things is, like, we scheduled this phone call for this time, but when you're dealing with a guy in prison, you kind of get a ballpark of when he's going to call, and he would call a lot.
Oh,
So
wow.
sometimes I'd be driving down the highway, and the phone, you have a call from the penitentiary, and you have to hop on the phone and you do an interview or you do have a call. And he was very much wanted to be a part of it, wanted his story told. I told him we were not doing we're not doing an examination of his case. We're going to explain what happened. We talked to him about the role in Supercross, and it's really great that Monster and Feld, and that means Mitch. They were like, it's part of the story. Tell the story.
Yeah.
And then Mitch can talk about, like, be honest, and that's how Mike Goodwin got in there. We weren't going to pretend it didn't happen.
well, that's big on you guys' part because it is part of the story, right? And that there's probably a whole lot of people that would have been afraid to tell that part of the story. I believe. Yeah. I mean, I just don't see. I haven't seen her heard anything.
Lightly.
Yeah, I haven't seen or heard anything from.
Yeah, he's
him
not
and-
mentioned very often. There's been very few mentions of Mike Goodwin in the more recent stuff, but to me, I just always craved to hear his story of sketching the track out and saying, let's bring this thing indoors and let's see how it goes. And just I was just super happy that you put that in there. I thought that was well done.
Yeah, what a great intro, man. You hooked us all with that right off the rip. Even if you don't like dirt bikes, you were probably like, I'm going to watch this now.
Yeah, for sure.
I got a funny story to tell you. There were quite a number of interviews, but one time I said, hey, I want to get some footage of Mike, which we ended up not using. And some guy in the prison who got footage for us. He goes, we created a distraction in another wing of the prison. We were able to get the footage you wanted.
You had,
Yeah.
like, insider access. That's so cool.
Yeah, I don't think they prefer to have films of interiors of prison getting
Yeah,
out.
Paul got a prison riot started to get a little footage there. Whatever it takes, Paul, just get the footage.
Yeah, just get it, man. Sounds like it was all out. So that was such a cool intro for me. I think a lot of people will think that as well. the title "Pay Dirt." Who came up with that? You got any? Is there any story to that?
I did came up with it, and I'll tell you how I came up with it. Is titles are a funny thing. Like another movie I made with Mitch called Unchained: The Untold Story of Freestyle Motocross, which won an Emmy Award.
We've seen that.
That was Mitch's title.
Okay.
And so Mitch came up with that one, and we've done a bunch together. But the funny thing about Pay Dirt, I was watching that Gold show. You know, the one where they we got to get the Pay Dirt.
Yep.
And I thought, Pay Dirt. That's what these guys are doing. They're racing for pay on dirt. Now, it's not gold, but it's a form of gold, and that's where the title came from.
That's pretty, it's always simple, right? The good things that work are always relatively simple if you can think of them. So, Mitch, I mean, did you picture yourself being involved in the film industry early on, like when you were younger?
That's probably the last thing, man. I'm a redneck from Alabama.
Yeah.
And, it was probably the last thing I thought I'd be doing. I got out of college. I flew airplanes in the Air Force, and then they kicked me out, and I got in the garbage business for 15 years. And, my sons came along. I had 3 kids, and they started racing motocross because I was looking for something to do with them. And the rest is kind of history there. But making films, no, that one probably wasn't in the crystal ball, but at Monster, it became part of the job. Yeah. So it's a really fun part of the job, to be honest with you. I enjoy the creativity of trying to come up with really cool stories, not just content and cool scenes, but stories about people in the sports we do. And Supercross is probably the most important sport we do to our brand. And so this film it took a long time, and we felt like it was a risky thing for us to do because it was so important to us. And and there was so much stuff there, and Paul can elaborate on it. There was so much stuff there that after a year working on it, Paul's like, I don't really know where we should go with this because we can't cover the history of Supercross in a short documentary. It's going to have to be a multi-part thing, and it's going to go on. And by that time, the sport had, you got new stars, you got other people coming on that you got to go back and shoot. So it would never end unless you did a somewhat live show. So we had to come up with it. And Paul says, look, let me put together some really cool stories that happened in the history of the sport and cool rivalries and show those, because it can't be the history of Supercross because we just can't tell it. It's too big.
Yeah, I think that the history of Supercross would have to be a 10 episode. You need to have 10 hour-and-a-half shows to do that. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like you guys doing that. That's, and it's, I say this all the time, and we're kind of like the idea, like we operate on the idea that you guys do. We might talk about the race a little bit, but we don't really talk about individual races. Like, we've had a lot of the top stars, like you guys, covering the movie cover Hannah and RJ and Ward, and we've been Bailey, and we've had all those guys on our show, but we don't really want to talk about, like, we try to get the backstory from everybody, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what y'all did to this movie, and I think there's a lot more place for that.
That's the interesting part. That's relatable to everyone.
Everybody covers the race. Yeah. Everybody knows what the results were. Everybody, and so
the timing in between, I think it's good just to let that time settle in and then ask them 20, 30, 40 years later.
I think that really hit with us, and it'll hit with a lot of people that our listeners and the people that watch our stuff, because, that's really what people are looking for, is that content. And it's, a big part of this sport now, the people that watch it and all are us, the vet aged guys. And I think that's that's the way to appeal to those people.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. No.
I got a question for Paul here. So when you're talking about the production and days and shooting, how long did it take you from start to finish to kind of shoot the entire thing and get everyone together? I'm sure it wasn't easy to get all these guys booked and scheduled.
Well, it was a challenge. And as Mitch said, I struggled with initially trying to find a linear approach. And then, we went way down the road, because that's kind of how we did Unchained, and I've done other movies with Monster and Mitch, where it was sort of a linear story. It's the obvious way to do it. So it actually was shot over a period of a couple of years, and the thing that then happened was that little thing called COVID came along, and you can't take. And the way I do the interviews is in a studio, right? Most, where people sit down and we light it. And you couldn't, at the height of that situation, it wasn't. I couldn't get. I didn't want to put a whole crew of 20 people in a closed room with no air, and everybody sitting on top of each other. That was not a good scenario. So we worked around that. So, and then I wanted to capture, a lot of the cinematic stuff. So getting to races, and as people are talking, you'll see all the various which why I encourage people to see it in a movie theater, because when you see it on that big screen, you really get a sense of the sport that's different than you're going to see it on television. And Feld, by the way, does a great job now with their coverage. But it's not the same thing. I'm not trying to cover a lap. I'm trying to capture moments. So it was 2 or 3 years of shooting and interviews. And then, Mitch and a guy named Mark Hall, who created the Monster brand, together they were able to get Bob Hanna, who initially was like, I don't need to tell my goddamn story. I don't care. I don't want it. He didn't care. And we really wanted him. So it took a lot of effort and a little bit of extra generosity, and him and Marty Tripes came as a little bit of a package. So that was something that we were holding out for. I just said, we got to have this guy. And he was the last one we did, the two of them. Then that's what ended up, tying the bow together. And I just thought he just brought a lot to the table.
So let me ask you, I know that what was off camera had to be hilarious with Bob Hanna, probably. I mean, that guy.
Either infuriating or hilarious.
Yes,
he
one of the two.
Both.
And we had him on our show, and when we got him, I don't know of anybody else's podcast he had done. And we got him on there, and it was hilarious. It was, and that dude was wide open, just like he was on your movie. I mean, he is.
He said it exactly how he feels in his heart.
Don't like him now. Walks in his room, I still don't like him.
No filter, it was so funny you said it was that hard to get, because we had people calling us the next day when we released that show, like
the Bob Hanna show,
industry people, and they're like, how the hell did you get Bob Hanna to talk to you? Like, that's so crazy. I know that. So I understand that had to be a fight for you to get him in there a little bit, and he's
off the radar.
But once he's there, he'll give you everything.
Yeah, once you get him talking, he gives it all to you. That's for sure.
Was there any big name or anyone like on your to-do list that you just didn't get locked in, or that you wanted to and couldn't get?
There is somebody.
Okay.
There is. Before I go, I want to say, Bob Hanna said, if I'm gonna come on here, you got to be a little extra generous to Marty Tripes. And the way he phrased was, I want a little bit of dough. You got to give Marty a little bit of dough. It wasn't a lot of money, but it was something that he wanted out of respect.
Yeah. That's phenomenal.
And it turned out he took his money and gave it to Marty Tripes. He said, I didn't actually want the money. I just wanted to make sure Marty got the money. And he gave it to Marty.
He has always
Marty
looked out
turned
for
out
him.
to not. Yep.
Maybe not
and of course,
anybody
the
else.
irony was,
Yeah.
and of course, Marty's the one who was driving the boat when he broke his leg.
Yep.
But certainly doesn't hold it against him, to say the least. But yeah, Marty was the one guy. The one person we did not get was James Stewart.
Man,
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
I saw
That is
some
the
footage
only
of him.
person.
I was wondering.
Yeah, he's in the film. And people at Monster reached out to him, Mitch, and there was a guy named Dave Gallen who runs motorsports for Monster. They really made an effort, and he said, well, I want my own movie. And I said, well, I'll do your own movie next, but I'm not looking to tell the whole story, but I said, you can't really tell Ricky's story and Chad's story without you being part of it. But he was the only one of everybody we wanted. And the flip side of that question is, who did we get that we didn't get to showcase?
Yeah.
And that person is Ron Lachine.
Man, the hogger.
He came in and he was so honest, and the stories he told about. The funniest thing is, he obviously had a drug problem, which he's been upfront about. And he said, I don't mind that I had a drug problem. I just wish I had done all the drugs after my career, not during.
For sure.
Hey, there were days that it didn't slow him down.
That's for sure. He's the best in the world multiple times.
Yeah, that guy, there's a race, a Donations race. 88 on a 500. And if you watch that race right now, we understand that the story goes that he showed up in a carload of girls, like still pretty jacked out of his mind right before practice. And he looks like he's going as fast as Eli Tomac goes today. I mean, he was flying. It's amazing. And Maybe the drugs helped a little bit. I don't know.
He was loose.
He just had his
feeling it.
days, you know. And
Yeah.
So Mitch, were you basically the contact point to line up these riders, or is that your world, Paul? I mean, I think Mitch is tied into moto heavily, so I don't know who lined all this up.
Yeah, it was really Paul, and the way those things work is, you know, we contract with Paul to make the film.
Okay.
And of course we help and we assist. Like if we have like Dave, especially, and our other motocross managers and people, if they know a person really well, we'll have them call them and ask them, right? Because they got the relationship or whatever. But really, you know, we hire Paul to make us a really good film, and we check in with him and talk to him about it on a sometimes daily basis. And but it's really Paul and Paul's crew. It's not just Paul. Paul's got some good people working for him that make him look good there, you know.
Yeah.
And
That's very true.
So he really makes the film. It's his responsibility.
Yeah. Well, and you know, Paul, you're no stranger to the two-wheeled world either. So I would imagine if you're knocking on the door and leaving, you know, emails and voicemails and stuff, I imagine these guys mostly take you for real, and then they call you back, I would think. I mean, was there one guy that you were really looking forward to having on this project?
Well, besides not getting James, but for me, one person who was really great was Jeremy McGrath. You know, I'm a fan of Jeremy's and what he accomplished. Jeremy presented a challenge, and we did things in a story-like fashion.
Okay.
So he just won so damn much, and he was such a nice guy. There's just not a lot of conflict there. And so I didn't want to tell the story of, and then in 1993, we went, here's McGrath winning and winning and winning. It's not that interesting. So it was bringing him and Emigan. I will tell one funny story that comes to mind was the day we interviewed Jeff Emig, who talked about losing his ride. We didn't get super into that, but it's in there. The guy who fired him, who Mitch knows well, is a guy named Bruce Sternstrom, who works for, and Sternstrom. So Emig tells the story how pissed off he was about getting fired, and you know we had just done the scheduling based on when we could get people into the studio. So Emig's telling the story, and guess who's standing there listening to it in the dark?
Yes,
is Sternstrom.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so they got then, but it was still in that good natured thing. But going back to Hannah and Brock Glover, you would think after all those years they'd be mellowed out.
You would think that.
Oh my God!
You totally would think that.
Nope. And same with Emig and Sternstrom. It was like all of a sudden they were polite and they were nice, but the wound was still raw, and so that was kind of interesting. We did shoot some behind the scenes of that, but it didn't quite make it into the movie.
Well, I would say you captured the emotion of that just in the little tidbit that you put in there about that. But you also, I know Jeremy is the ultimate champion. My question was going to be, what was your favorite rider to get on the thing, and did your opinion change? But if Jeremy was your favorite rider, your opinion did not change, because the guy is amazing.
No, and Jeremy also...
But that's where I'm headed. Go with that.
He also went, that's one thing about this movie that you got from Jeremy that nobody's ever gotten before. I've never, we watched Jeremy in the 90s, of course, and you're right. What are you going to say? Okay, well, he started winning in 93 and then pretty much kicked everybody's ass for 7 years.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
72 wins later.
You know, and there were a lot of people that got where they didn't like him because he won so much. You know, it was always...
It was boring.
You got a side out of Jeremy that we didn't get. We had him on our show. We didn't get that out of him, where he, he
talks about Emig's choices.
He wasn't scared to talk about how he feels about Emig.
When he goes in and talks about Wyndham making the
it was Emig.
Emig making the what did you say?
Trashy.
I
think he said trashy
dirty,
decisions or something.
Trashy.
Yeah, and nobody's ever gotten that from Jeremy.
That's the hardest hitting Jeremy
cross
comment.
Jumper, he called him, all kinds of stuff.
And he's great, and he still came across as a great champion and super humble and all that. But you did get a little side of him that nobody's seen before.
Well, the thing that helps me so much is that Monster says to me, and this is Mitch and the people there, just do your job. Don't try to, get it. We're not looking for another typical, I'm a great guy and I love my competitors. They support, real independent filmmaking.
Yeah.
And with Jeremy, finding that story about the strike was like gold to me.
Oh yeah.
So
Lights
that
went
wait
out.
a second, there's a real and when Jeremy was talking about like I never lost to him, he didn't beat me, I lost to him. We just got him to admit a little bit that underneath that veneer, there's a tough guy there who's not always Mr. Nice Guy.
Yeah, yeah, and I tell you, like you said, going back to Hannah and Glover, we had Hannah on the show, and like you don't get a different side of Hannah because he's got one side.
Yeah.
You got the
It's truthful. He tells it like it is.
yeah
no
the
matter
one
what.
side you got, but he is still a super intense guy, and we've been fortunate enough in the last 2 years to be around Brock Glover on 5 or 6 occasions, like just running into him at races and stuff. And he's an intense guy too.
He's also nice though, which
He's
is
super nice,
amazing that Hannah just thinks he's an asshole.
Yeah, but he's been super nice to us, but he's also, like we laugh a lot when we're around him because he's intense and funny at the same time. Did he come across to you the same way?
Well, I'm a little embarrassed about this, but as we're talking to him, I knew I was not interested in the races that he won, that Brock Glover won. Like he wasn't that interesting as a rider. He won a couple championships or whatever he did. I don't even remember exactly what he did.
6.
It was his relationship, the teammate relationship, that was interesting.
Yeah.
And I learned that when I did a documentary also for Monster, and Mitch was involved a few years before that, called Fastest, about MotoGP racing.
Okay.
And that's when I learned about how teammates are. The word teammate doesn't mean what it means in any other sport. So that's what fascinated me. And as I started asking Brock about Bob, he got really mad. Why do you always want, everybody wants to talk about Hannah. Fuck Hannah. And then he went on and on. And at the end of it, he goes, don't use any of that. And I was like, well, sorry, man.
That's the
He
gold
said it,
right
and the
there.
cameras are rolling.
Yeah.
Hey, we've been in
And I heard
person.
later,
Go ahead.
I've heard since that he saw the movie. He was invited to the premiere. Someone told me we did a big premiere in Anaheim, and someone said he snuck into the premiere, but I didn't see him there. But he told a few people, I can't believe they did that thing about Bob. And so he's still mad about it, and he still feels the same way. Why didn't Hannah let it go? But I really have to give credit to Mitch and the Monster people who say to me as a filmmaker, make the movie. Don't. We're not looking for a history lesson.
Yeah, you might have to hurt some feelings along the way.
Yeah, and you didn't compromise. I mean, you got the story, right?
So was there any other,
Yeah.
obviously you kind of answered my question right there saying you had to cut that out. Was there any other like important parts or scenes that you needed to cut that you didn't want to, but you were just like, I got to cut it, or it's just not going to fit the timeline correctly or tell the story?
The only other one was Ryan Villapoto, who's in the movie a little bit, but when everything was by theme. So once I knew I was going to have a theme of fathers and
The chapters
sons,
and stuff?
right, which became the Ricky Johnson section,
Yeah.
to tell that 3 times, they were kind of the same story. Same with Ron Lachine. His whole story, the reason he was such a rebel was because of, he was under the thumb of his father. And, and Villapoto, which is a different story, and what his father went through in terms of having dialysis, getting him on the track, and winning the Monster Million and then passing away. It was the father-son story, and I had to say, I can't tell the same story. Now, luckily, the story that one of the most fun parts was interviewing Meanie Genie.
Yeah.
Which, again, and so that I was able to do a similar story, but it was a mother-son story in a completely different way, a positive one. So it was, I do feel that Ryan Villapoto, who, by the way, loved the movie, he was really happy with it. I thought he might think I kind of shortchanged him.
No, I thought it was good. It was
and the other thing,
short and sweet.
Yeah, there's a lot more to that. I think there's another story, which is, the other thing was, a lot of these guys, and Mitch can talk about this, it's a tough sport. And they like talking about it now, but, Villapoto said the happiest day of his life was when he finally got to retire, because he was just such a grueling thing. And now he's happy to be, walking around with a smile on his face. But, Mitch, you would say that these guys have a tough time at it, don't they?
Yeah, and to that point, in the film it talks about how they start out as kids doing Loretta Lynn's and doing the amateur thing, and in the beginning of making the film, I think Paul went down the road a little bit of all these injuries and these kids, and and that you guys are familiar with amateur motocross and everything that goes on in the pits at an amateur motocross race, and the pressure the kids are put on, the injuries of the kids. And we said, time out, let's talk about this, because we're doing this film to raise the awareness and doing it for the good of the sport of motocross and supercross. And let's don't make this thing out to be, this cruel, bad,
it's part
bad
of it, though.
sport. Let's don't. Yeah.
Sadly,
it really is. It is that brutal. So how do we show that, and at the same time not make it really over the top graphically with these kids out there? Because then it could turn on you. It could turn on the whole sport. And people say, well, like why'd you emphasize that so much? Now you're hurting the sport. You're not helping the sport, or that's not really the way it was, or whatever. Yeah, because you got to remember a lot of the target audience for this film was not just like people that are deep into motocross, like your super avid supercross fans. We wanted people to see this film sitting in theaters at premieres all over the world that maybe had never thought about seeing a supercross race, or never been to one, or thought they didn't even like racing. And what Paul has done well for us in the past is tell a story about a sport that people that had no interest prior to seeing it thought that was a really good show, and now I want to go see Supercross, because they know a lot more about it now, and they're so it was and I hope this film does that, that people that watch it, because I got to say, most of the people that watch this film may not know anything about Supercross. And a lot of people that watch it are casual fans that think they know about modern day Supercross, but they really don't know what happened between Brock Glover and Hannah, and they sure didn't know about the opening scenes of the movie with Goodwin and all those things. But so you're looking at, hey, who are we targeting in this thing, as far as, and it was such a broad audience that we were targeting. We just it's tricky when, as a brand in a big company, you take on a project to tell a story in a space that's that important to you, that you've been that invested in for so long. It's just kind of scary, So we really took our time and really tried to do the best we could, and we trusted Paul to do it, because we've had such good experience with him over the past.
Well, he did a great job with that, and we really do appreciate the fact that y'all made this movie. Like, we do this show, and we go out and we do these events, and we go to, like, we have a race we put on, we go have an adventure ride. We got a bunch of stuff that we're doing shows for, we're just getting to be able to do shows for this year, and trying to make these shorts, these shows, but we're really doing it to try to grow the sport, right? And I know Monster's involved so heavily that's like, we love this sport, and that's what we're trying to do, is to grow it. And I appreciate the fact that, and I know Monster's monetarily
heavily
involved,
invested,
but they're heavily invested because they got people that work at Monster like you that love the sport and want to grow it like we do. You know what I mean? That's where,
right.
Like, I was watching the movie thinking the exact same thing you were thinking. This is good for people that don't know the story, or a 25-year-old kid that loves Supercross that doesn't know the Mike Goodwin story, or somebody that's never watched it. Like, it really, really feels good to see people trying to do, like, you guys obviously have a lot more reach than we do, but to try to grow, people that are in it to grow it.
Yeah, but I'll tell you one thing too. When the movie was over, my first thought was, you could use this film to out of industry potential sponsors. You could say, hey, here's our sport. We'd like to talk to you about some support or whatever. I know it tells the whole entire story. I mean, that was my first thought. You could show out of industry sponsors this.
I think so. I got a question too for you guys, and I'm sure you're going to answer this, and you're probably going to say 40 people have told us that, or 400 or 4,000. But I follow Formula One a little bit, right? Formula One has the Drive to Survive show, which is the show is way better than any Formula One race that ever comes on. The show is interesting. Compared to Supercross, Formula One racing sucks. You know what I mean?
In comparison,
no, I think we all agree.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not putting them down. They're the best drivers in the world. But they're going around a course. It's the same every lap. All they got to worry about is their tire wear or blowing the car up. Supercross, you got to judge the obstacles.
Way more factors.
Better, there's more passing. There's more, and it's one of those deals where if a guy gets pole position, he probably won the race. You know what I mean? And so Supercross is 10 times better. And I'm sure that y'all have had people say, what would it take to make a show like Drive to Survive for Supercross? And the second part of that question would be, I wonder if that's an issue is that sometimes, like this year, you got the guy that's supposed to be the best rider, the favorite jet, Supercross does have a lot of stars that get hurt. You don't, unlike Formula One, unless they get fired for not doing well, you finish with the same 20 guys you started with. In Supercross,
right.
we don't always start. We
never end with
the same 22 that started.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. And it's kind of a slippery slope. We looked at doing that in other sports and talked about it. For a couple of reasons, we haven't done it because one, okay, we're a brand. And we have competitors that are also in the sport. If we do the behind the scenes filming and it's our film and we're the ones, doing the thing, then it's there's always that question about, they're not treating us fairly. We're not showing our competitor heroes enough. And, it's just going to be a big question about that. We'd like maybe a third party maybe should do it. Second of all is, like you say, if you've got big stars and you start the show out really focusing on, say, I don't know, let's just take Eli Tomac just for kicks and say, he's where he's at in his career, on the verge of legendary status here, and he's stalking this championship. You invest all this time in the show, and then he breaks his wrist and off he goes and disappears off the scene. You got to start all over, and they can't find a rider, and you got to. It's just it's a challenging thing. Like you said, and F1 it's better for it because they're probably not going to get hurt in the middle of the season, and it's a lot better. But I think somebody will do it. I've heard rumors that somebody might, and I hope they do. I hope they do it well if they do it, and we would be for it.
Well, so
I'll say from my perspective, I was going to say I think I could do that show as a director producer, but my real specialty is not that, in the moment stuff, but what you saw there and what I've done in these other documentaries, which is to sort of get to a deeper, hopefully, a more story-driven thematic level of like what you said, where you can get someone like a Jeremy McGrath to reveal a side. Or look at one of my favorite parts of the movie is about the privateer. I mean, it's such an outrageously crazy thing if you think, there's nothing like that in the NBA or the NFL, right? There's no sort of afternoon game where you play in a game outside and one guy qualifies to play that night. And we found one guy, thought he was a good story, and there's a million other ones of those.
Sure.
And that was kind of a little bit of a sad one, and whatever, but because he didn't make the main and he was near the end of his career. But it's a fascinating thing that's unique to Supercross. I just don't know of any other sport that has something like that. But as much as it's a challenge, it speaks to this passion that people have for the sport. I mean, imagine, like you saw in the movie, and you guys already know this, and I was flabbergasted as a sort of a semi-outsider going, wait a second, there's people who make no money and drive to races and literally risk their health and well-being for the dream of making it into a show where if they make it into the night show, they got no chance of winning, basically. And that degree of passion transcends the sport. That talks about why the sport's so powerful. It transcends the business of the sport and captures the essence of the sport. That's why I thought that was so important. The other people, you talk about who I did get or didn't get. I'll tell you what scared me at the beginning. I knew Monster would understand what I was doing, but I was really scared about Feld. They come from the world where everything's manufactured, right? And actually, I had worked for the circus 20 years earlier. I had made a bunch of videos about the circus, so I knew what that was, and I knew about how they were a very controlling organization. And every night a guy almost falls off of the wheel of death, and at the exact same time every single night because he ain't close to falling off. And this ain't a game, right? And at one point, literally, I was actually out riding ATVs with my son, and I get this emergency phone call that Kenneth Feld wants to talk to me about what the hell are we doing with his sport. And I was actually out in, the high desert and riding around in ATVs, not ATVs, UTVs and whatnot. And then we had this call, and I was kind of petrified, going, "Oh man, I know everybody said they were supportive, but when I told them I was going to tell the truth, and it was going to be, that people get hurt, but it wasn't, and then they got behind it, and they opened up their arms and they said, "Come in, get the archives, and get the footage," and they gave us access to the track to get the cinematic stuff that we got. So I just want to give them a shout out that they really." Because they had the same things that Mitch is talking about. We have a business here, and they did not have control, and they were nervous. And then, at the end of the day, from as far as I know, they were very, very happy with it.
For sure.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, they were very good to work with.
Yeah, I think it was portrayed correctly. And I wanted to ask you guys, was it Feld specifically who wanted to bring in Jimmy Button and Road to Recovery and tell his story? Because I think you guys, like the sequence in how you told the story and you put Jimmy in the middle, and it's such a positive story, and that's our worst fear, any rider, right? So I was curious how you guys got him on, and he was a very pivotal part of the movie, I think.
To me, it's the most emotional thing, and Jimmy's actually been spoken many times at premieres and whatnot. He never told the story before. I didn't know what I was going to get when he sat down, but the answer is no. Feld had no actual real creative at all. And when I told them this is how I was going to handle this issue, they were fine with it, and they had no problem. They're obviously happy how it turned out. But Jimmy, he came in and it's funny in my business, you never know, like with McGrath, I had to be a little cagey to sort of like get him to the point to talk about the stuff that is not just because he's so professional, right? And he knows what he's doing.
Would you,
so to get him to sort of,
would you say cagey where you were like, man, Jeff Emmy was talking shit about you, man?
But there is a little bit of that's one of the techniques that that we use. Well, Jeff said this, and
Emmy's still pissed. He said he whooped your ass.
Exactly, but other people, and this is a case with Lachine, and it was also the case with Emig. With Jimmy Button. Jimmy wanted to tell the story because he has never told it, and that's where, him knowing that Monster was going to do it right, that he was in a safe space, and he was waiting his whole life, in a sense, nobody had really asked him. And we did talk about it. This was something that in the original edit, as we're internal, the editor left out when I told him I want this section about, but when he got hurt, he was ostracized from the sport. And I said, no, that needs to be in this story. Yeah. That the guy who gets hurt, when he shows up in the pits, people really don't want to see it, and Jimmy talked about that. And I wonder if they're going to like that. But everybody, it's really part of his story.
Yeah, it's a dark cloud. So everyone's scared of it.
Yeah,
Jimmy Button is to me a really fair-minded guy. He's a very open-minded person, and a lot of times when people have their preconceived notions about how things are going to be, they don't want to participate or whatever. And I think in the beginning he was worried what kind of film we were going to make, and at the premiere he told me, he goes, man, I got to tell you, he said, I was wrong about in the beginning. I was really worried, but you guys told the truth, and you really did well. And Paul, he said, I was worried about how he was going to put this whole thing together. And he was just honest that he was worried about how Paul would do the film. But he said, but I'm not anymore. And you guys did a great job. And, for him to kind of admit he was wrong and then really support the movie after we made it. And, and I've always been really good friends with Jimmy anyway, but yeah, he really, I walked away from kind of the thing, you think, Jimmy Button's a good guy. And so
he's always been
Mitch, talk about the other person who really, really well, how we were nervous about RJ.
Yeah, I know RJ super well. We were partners in a business one time, and it was great, and love RJ. But RJ can be.
Please tell us real quick. Sorry to cut you off. Yeah. What business was this, real quick? Just.
RJ and I started the Torque series, off-road truck racing series.
Cool.
And then we sold it to Monster, and that's really how I got to Monster. And I was an agent for Johnny. Yeah, I was an agent for Johnny Greeves because when I was in the garbage business, I moved to Wisconsin, and my son Thomas came along, was like 5 years old, and won Loretta Lynn's right before I moved to Wisconsin. We go to the first race up there in the our new homeland up there in Wisconsin, and
I'm familiar. I'm from Illinois. I raced District 17 my entire career, so
there you go.
Maybe I've been there.
So we show up, and there was a kid there named C.J. Greeves, and he was kind of the only local kid there that was kind of at our level. And we would go at it in those local district races there for a few months. And Johnny would come out there and stand, and every week he'd come in a new motorhome. And he was top level guy. I mean, no doubt about it. And I'm like, who is that guy? And they're like, he races trucks, man. That's Johnny Greeves. And I'm like, I've never heard of it, man. I don't know about truck racing. Yeah. I go over there and I say, hey bud, what do you do? He says, I race trucks. And I'm like, well, what kind of trucks? I don't know nothing about that. He goes, well, why don't you come to this race next week at Crandon, Wisconsin, up there, and watch me race? And they have a little thing for kids where they race dirt bikes. You bring Thomas and he can race, and you can just hang out and see what I do. So I go, man, I don't know what to expect. I go up there and there's 50,000 people there. They're all camped out.
This isn't Lake Geneva. Is this something different?
Is it what?
It's not Lake Geneva, is it?
No. This is in Crandon, Wisconsin. Okay. It's kind of the Indy 500 or the Super Bowl of off-road truck racing. Oh, wow. And today they, for 3 straight days they'll have 60,000 people there. Oh, wow. And anyway, it's really crazy and really a good event. But nonetheless, Johnny goes and he wins, and ESPN was filming it that year, and I'm like, wow, this is big. And he said, hey man, he had an Indian tribe that was his sponsor, and he says, hey man, I used to race motocross. I need an agent. And I said, well, I don't know about being an agent. And he's like, yeah, you do. And he said, I'll tell you what, I'll buy you a ticket to Las Vegas to Supercross finals, and I want you to walk around in the pit back there and see if you can find me some of those cool motocross sponsors to go on my truck. Huh. And I said, well, Johnny, I don't know anything about it, but hey, I've been in sales, I'll go. Okay. So I go, I walk around the pits, and I'm talking to everybody, and I see a party going on in a monster motorhome, and I go beat on the door and say, hey, who's in charge of marketing here? Guy comes out and says, what do you want, man? And
money.
And it was Joe Parsons. He says, yeah, what do you need, man? I says, hey man, I represent an off-road truck racer in Wisconsin. He goes, yeah, who? Well, I didn't figure anybody in Las Vegas or California had ever heard of Johnny Greeves, right? I just met him. I'd never heard of him. So I said, this guy named Johnny Greeves. Joe goes, Johnny Greeves? Hey, he's like the best there is. He's the winningest guy in the sport. That Johnny Greeves? And I'm like, yeah, that's him. And he said, man, I spent all my money on this other team like 2 weeks ago. I don't know if I got any budget left, but man, if I could just get his helmet, if I could just get a sticker on the side of his helmet, what would that cost me? And I'm like, I don't know. So I'll be right back. So I called Johnny and I'm like, hey, this energy drink there wants to put a sticker on the side of your helmet. He goes, oh, they're cool, man. Dude, they're cool. He says, yeah, go back. I'll make a deal. I said, what do you want for it? He says, man, just get me anything they won't pay, $5,000 or $10,000. I'll do it just because it's cool. And so I go back and I said, all right, Joe, it'll be $75,000 for the helmet. Uh-huh. And he said, oh man, $75,000. You got to be kidding. Would he do it for 40? I said, I don't know. So anyway, Johnny's like, go back and get a napkin, a piece of paper, whatever you got to close that deal, dude. And so
how cool is that?
The rest is, so the rest is kind of history, but the way the story went is he was racing in a series called Core, and they had started racing in California, and it was on TV. It was really big in Southern California, and the sport was really taking off. And then the real estate bubble burst, and the guy that owned the series was heavily invested in real estate, and he goes, hey, I'm pulling the plug on this racing thing, guys. So he pulled the rug out from under the series that all these racers had went out and got really nice sponsors for, and a lot of money raised up. And so back to RJ, and I started this crazy story, is RJ was racing for Red Bull, and all the drivers got together and says, what are we going to do, man? We got all these sponsors. We got nowhere to race. What are we going to do? RJ's like, I want to start a series. That's been my lifelong dream. He goes, and, RJ speaks about it. He wants to do Ricky Johnson Off-Road Grand Prix and all this stuff. And so anyway, I'm out there to help my guy, Johnny Greeves, because I just sold him a huge sponsorship with Monster. And now we got no place to race. We're about to both go from really doing well to really not doing anything. And so the way the kind of thing evolved is the riders decided to have another meeting, get sponsors together. And I said, there's a guy that owns Traxxas RC cars, a big wealthy guy. I said, I know him. He's a friend of mine. Let me call him. He raced in the series last year. He needs to be in on this meeting and things, because he's a really smart guy. So I called him up and I said, hey, Mike, you need to fly your ass out here. These guys need some help. And he's like, what are they thinking? I said, well, RJ's wanting to start a series, and some other people's got some ideas about a series. And he goes, I'll tell you what I'll do, man. He says, I'll give you guys $1.5 million. Call it Traxxas Off-Road Series, Torque. And he said, but the only way I'm doing it is I don't know them other guys. He says, the only way I'll do it is if you own 50%. And you run it. And I says, so I covered up the phone. I said, Johnny, I said, Jenkins going to send us $1 million to get started, but I got to own half of it. He's like, well, what are you waiting on? And so I promise you this is the truth. The very next day, my little bank in Vernon, Alabama called me and said, man, $1 million just got wired to your checking account.
It's their biggest deposit, man.
Yeah, really.
Wow.
3,500 people in town. And so we started this racing series, and me and RJ ran it. And it was quite a thing that spooled up. Lucas Oil decided to put on a series in competition. So you had this Torque IRL war going on. But nonetheless, I slept at RJ's house on his couch for 3 months, because I left home to go to California to try to figure out how my guy's going to keep making a living in the racing business, and just stayed out there. And I ended up living there for 17 more years. But I lived with RJ in his house for a good 3 months. Man, we had some times, man. We had some RJ times.
He's wide open. That is an awesome story. I want to go straight back to Johnny Greeves. And we're motocross rednecks, so that doesn't seem that outlandish to us. Like we're used to weird things. And, we're from Georgia, you're from Alabama, we get it. But from 10,000 feet, if you told that story to somebody else and said, well, I was talking to this guy, and he's like, so what do you do? I'm in trash. Yeah, well, I need an agent.
Yeah, I mean, it is quite a leap. Quite the leap.
Like, that's pretty bold to go from.
I just want to interrupt there. Mitch Covington sells himself. He's and you guys get this, you Southern guys, of which I'm a New Yorker, now Californian. But, the whole Southern aw shucks thing is a facade for really sharp sharks and barracudas.
For sure.
Yeah, we are taught that. We are taught that at an early age down here.
Yeah, play dumb and
be the dumbest guy in the room,
exactly.
Whether you are or not.
So even though it may sound, Johnny figured out right away that Mitch knew, and that's why. And just to mention right now, just so you guys know, not only does Mitch oversee motorsports, Mitch oversees all the sports marketing for all the athletes and all the properties, including everything from F1 to, surfing, to every monster athlete you see out there at some level. Mitch oversees that, does those deals, and deals with the internal dynamics and all the stuff that goes on. So, he is a good old boy, but like I said, I've learned, I don't know whether it's a shark in Southern clothing or something or other.
Yeah, he's doing a hell of a job with
For
it
sure.
too.
Hey,
and it started with a sticker on a Monster helmet. That's all he wanted.
We're drinking a Monster in honor because you were going to be here tonight. We didn't, it's closer to our.
Kevin's not here. We didn't have to rep.
Yeah, and it's closer to our bedtime here, so we're not probably not
going to bed.
Yeah, we're not going to bed anytime soon.
Hey, can we circle back to Jimmy Button's portion quickly? I've talked to him. Heck, back in 2007 at the Motocross of Nations, I talked to him for a long time. There was part of that story, I just wonder if it got mentioned. I wonder if I remember it right. When he initially got hurt and he's on the side of the track, there is a doctor out there in California named Hans Kierstead, who is a leading researcher in spinal cord injuries. He had determined that if you can get a certain protein blocker or some type of medicine, that it will keep the ends of the spinal cord from sealing off, which is what keeps you from being able to heal from a spinal injury. I heard a story that he asked for that medicine. Do you guys know of that? Am I imagining this? Have you ever heard
anything
this?
about it. Not heard it. All I know is that the first person who was at Jimmy's side, who's in the movie, who was also part of our movie on freestyle, Dr. G, who's the go-to guy for all these guys. He was the one who was, helped him initially and later on. But no, I don't know anything about that whatsoever. It did not come up.
Well, it's such a positive story.
I don't remember him. Yeah, I don't remember him telling that story. I moved out there from Alabama, cold, and really met him, and then went to his house the first night I met him. Okay,
Wow.
And slept on his couch, and we spent a lot of time, obviously, riding around and working and traveling over the next year, and he would tell me tons of motocross stories. But he told me, about his career-ending navicular bone that didn't heal, and he got a settlement and on his Lloyd's of London disability, and but he never went into that kind of detail with me. And like I say, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed anyway. So if he goes too deep about spinal injuries and the details of it, goes in one ear and out the other to me, because I don't know anything about it.
Well, I think you captured the essence of it, and it's nothing short of miraculous that he is up and walking around, rode his bike at coast to coast, I guess, and and you got that for RJ too. I mean, there's some epic stuff in this film, and you mentioned earlier, I think Paul, you said it. You had segments where it was about the fathers and maybe Genie as the mothers, and you had segments of injury. And was that what drove the layout of the film, or basically the, because you didn't do it in order. You didn't start in 1972, go to 1979 to 1984. You jumped around. Is the movie grouped in stories like that? And I guess it went over my head.
But that's exactly right. I mean, that was one of the challenges. Once I decided we were going to do it in sort of like segments, almost like feature pieces, that were not connected. And I will say, one person who deserves to be a mention, the reason it really works is two things. One, we got lucky that Mike Goodwin had his first race at the Coliseum, and the movie ends with Danger Boy winning his first championship when the two series came together back at the Coliseum.
Yes.
So I'm a big believer that movies are really about structure. So you don't feel that. We don't talk about it, but it pulls the movie together. It ends where it begins. It ends with Goodwin even saying, his voice saying, hey, they made my dream come true. So from a movie structural standpoint, it ties together, because you may not know it consciously, but you're back there where you were. So then it was a matter of, how do I connect all these things? And then I have a background as a writer. I was a journalist before I became a filmmaker. And then I'm very, very fortunate, and this is about the fourth or fifth movie I've done this with the actor Josh Brolin. So when I wrote these segues that kind of pull you from one to the next with hopefully it worked, to just sort of ease you through, find a little bit of connective tissue, and then, freaking Josh's voice and his passion. He gets the sports. He's not just a voice, or he certainly wasn't getting paid, I'll tell you that. We had one executive at Monster, by the way, who hadn't worked with before. I said, oh, Josh is going to be narrating our movie. And the guy goes, what do you mean? We can't afford Josh Brolin. We're not spending $1 million, $2 million. What you're at it? He just got really kind of like, and I was like, no, don't worry. And he was, because, Josh Brolin is now, a major star from Thanos and so on. For sure. And I go, no, he does it for free, basically. It was like the fifth movie we've done together, because he gets it. So when he talks about that segues between one section and another, he pulls you through the movie, and then at the end, and as a writer, it's really gratifying that you write these words, and then here comes his voice that just makes it come alive, and you don't really notice it, but it's how you feel. So the challenge was, do I put Jimmy Button at the beginning? Do I go to the history piece, because we did a little bit of how it was born, to follow right after the opening? And so one of the things we did was move it around like a jigsaw puzzle. Which piece goes where? How do we end this thing? How do we tie it together? because we weren't following it linearly, but I wanted, to keep it. And I thought, the reason we put Jimmy and the thing about the danger, that up front was like, I wanted to engage you right away to go, this is an emotional story. At one point I thought about putting it later in there, but it just fit right where it was. So it's just things you could move around, but that's how we chose to do it. So it wasn't linear. It was just thematic.
Yeah, that was a smooth sequence. And I also wanted to just touch on how you have Brian in there with the privateer, and then you tie that in to obviously the next generation at the end of the movie with Hayden.
It's full circle,
dude.
man.
It's so cool. Yeah, the sequence was right on point. So well done with that.
And Brian to be such a wild card is really, it's almost like you were talking about with the whole slow Southern drawl when you're not really the slow person.
Brian's a very sharp
Brian's that way too.
businessman.
He comes off as a wild card, but he's a business guy. He's pretty. He's dedicated to his craft, and he's worked really hard with that situation.
Yeah, Mitch has got to be pretty close with him, right, with the monster stuff.
Well, let me just, Brian and I go way back, and not always in an easy way. I ran for 15 years the sport of freestyle motocross as what they call the sport organizer for the X Games.
X Games,
I brought the sport to.
Yeah, I saw that you're credited as the creator.
I wrote the original paper that put that together, and then I came in and ran freestyle and other stuff for 16 years all over the world. And Brian was, when you're the promoter, as Mitch can tell you, you're on the other side of the table than the athletes. It's just a natural adversary relationship. Sure. You have different goals. And so there I was, essentially the promoter working for ESPN and the X Games, and there's Brian trying to build his brand. And I ran my own events besides the X Games. I had my own independent events that he wanted to use, and he was trying to, manipulate the judging and the this and the that. And I butted head. And one of the funny stories was I brought in the sport of supermoto to X Games.
Yeah.
And one day, and we bring in the sport in. It was my idea, bring it in, and we got Honda to put up some money. And I'm walking through the pits, and I looked down, and Brian was entered into the supermoto contest. And I looked down at his supermoto bike, and he's got freaking knobbies on there. I go, you can't run supermoto on knobbies. What's going on? I asked a few people. Well, it turns out his plan was to lead the first lap on dirt because he'd be the only guy with knobbies, and then ghost ride his bike. So I threw him out of the event. I said, you're not riding that bike. Out.
Yeah,
and he was, I'm going to beat you up, and we screamed and yelled, and I go, you're not riding knobbies and launching that bike in the stadium with people around there. You did it, as you know, everybody knows the story. You did it at Supercross, so you're not going to do it here. So he was really mad, and we had over the years, but after I did the movie Unchained, again with Mitch and Monster, Brian came to me and said, I want you to do my movie. So there's another movie out there called Bloodline, The Life and Times of Brian Deegan, which tells the entire story of Brian Deegan and about his mother and his family and how he almost died and found God and changed everything. So Brian and I have, again, I wouldn't say we're friends. We see things very differently in a lot of aspects of the world. But he had respect for the movie. And so when it came time to want to do his own movie, and Monster was also one of the people who helped support Bloodline, he came to me. And so when I said, hey, I want to tell this story, and of course I will also say this, Brian couldn't get into the chair fast enough to tell the story of his win at the Coliseum, by the way.
I bet.
Yeah.
But so he's a wild card, but he was great. And he also, as a guy who does interviews, he knows what you're looking for. He delivers. So it was great.
Yeah,
he's a monster guy now.
Yeah, he's on that for sure. And can we go back to Josh Brolin for a second? Like, are you pretty tight with Josh Brolin?
I would say so. We text each other regularly. The funny story about Josh Brolin, how this came about, was I had done a movie called Hawaiian, The Legend of Eddie Aikau, which was about a big wave surfer and Hawaiian cultural figure. We made the movie, and it was for ESPN. It was a 30 for 30, and we couldn't figure out who the narrator was going to be. So one day I was surfing down at my beach locally, and there he was in the water. And I didn't want to go up to him, but I said to my wife, hey, Josh Brolin would be great. And so she starts calling, and he spends 2 months trying to get him to do it. And finally he calls up and says, I've never done a narration. I think my voice is terrible. I don't want to do it. And I go, well, what about for this guy, Eddie Aikau? He goes, okay. So he reluctantly agreed to do it. And of course he was fantastic. We won an Emmy Award, and Mitch obviously has one of those trophies in his house. And, that was for Unchained. And so Josh jokes. He then went on to have a big career. He did NASCAR. He's on TV now for one of the phone companies. He's made a lot of money, 7 figures. doing voice work, and he thanks me because we forced him to do it.
That's
So,
hilarious.
of course, he doesn't have to. So he's just happy to do it, and he loves these sports. He did our big wave movie called Groundswell, The Other Side of Fear, and he was a surfer. He rides a dirt bike. He grew up on dirt bikes. So he's dying to do a MotoGP one, by the way. He loves Valentino Rossi.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Very cool.
And so he's the real deal. You know, he's not your Hollywood foofy guy. He really he's the real deal. So he loves the passion of it, and he loves being part of it. He loves the realness of it.
Well, you can tell, like, you don't have to see many interviews with him or read. I read an interview with a magazine, maybe Esquire or something, that Josh Brolin did. And you don't have to go far into an interview of his to see his passion for motorcycles. I mean, he is really, like, motorcycles and surfing, like you said, he seems like a real guy. A little bit hippy-dippy trippy, which I love about that guy. But that was also that's a huge pull for you for this movie, for you guys, because he is a guy that, like, he'll bring people from the outside because they're like, oh, this is the guy from the Avengers. Oh, this is the guy from,
he's the right guy.
He's the guy from Deadpool. You know what I mean? Like, there are people that know him that are these huge grossing movies that will, you know, there's got to be Josh Brolin fans that'll listen to it just because it's Cable from Deadpool.
Yeah.
You know, like that's a big thing.
It's a good pull,
yeah,
for sure.
For sure.
You're mentioning, you know, the perfect voice for the movie. You had Larry Huffman speak.
The man.
The guy who is the sound of all of our childhood images and all the cool moments of us seeing some racing. His voice is tied to that. I mean, did you get to spend much time with him? That seems epic to us.
Well, I'm so glad that he is in the movie, and his wife, because, you know, as you know, he's passed away.
Yeah.
And we had him. He really was great, you know, and he did come in, and he wasn't feeling 100%, but he was so happy to have his story told and to be part of it. And it's one of the things that, as a filmmaker, occasionally you just smile and you sort of thank, you know, the way things worked out. And his wife has said it was he had been remembered, and he's part of that history. And he looked great on the film, and his wife was there, and it was just a really sweet moment. And I'm really glad that he was in the film.
You know, there's on that. I don't want to finish this show without saying that Eric Johnson played a huge role in making this film happen.
Yes, that's true.
He's the ultimate historian.
Right. And he was so tickled to tell. You could tell he could barely keep it together.
Yeah, he's a historian. He gets his blood boiling every day of his life talking about, you know, motocross stories from the past, and he can go way back, and he's got a photographic memory. And I think Paul will tell you, I don't know if we'd ever got this thing across the finish line with, you know, the challenges we had without Eric's, you know, being able to bounce things off Eric as far as the facts and who are we missing, who do we need to talk to, you know. So I got to give a big shout out to Eric on the film.
I mean, would you say he's the most knowledgeable?
I want to second that.
Yeah,
I really, and I'm embarrassed that I didn't bring it up because he helped me do some of the interviews. We talk about people willing to come in. When I said, "Hey, Eric Johnson's one of the producers," and he is listed as a producer. You know, he was involved. He made people comfortable. He made phone calls to people who weren't returning calls. And then for me, because I am not an expert by any means in this sport, and I would talk to him, and he would guide me and say, you know, and like Ron Lachine being a good one, and a lot of these people, they felt comfortable that Eric Johnson was involved. Davey Coombs also brought a lot to the table, but Eric also served as a narrator. You know, Eric was great because he's in the film, and him being in it really bring it alive. When I needed someone to, you know, to help put things in a 30,000-foot perspective, you feed him a question, and he could really bring insight. So, Mitch, I'm really stoked that you brought that up because Eric deserves a lot of credit in Pay Dirt being made. Yeah,
no, for sure. And between him and Davey Coombs, I believe that's the ultimate 1-2 punch of moto historians. Yeah, and good storytellers. They really care about exactly what this movie's trying to do, which is tell the story. And man, you got the all-star lineup for sure. So, you know, and Paul, heck, man, I mean, your list of accomplishments, you've got, it shows online at 200 million at the box office. Basically, I'm sure that's climbing.
With the Vow?
With the Vow. Yeah. I'm only talking about the Vow. Yeah, I'm switching gears to
only the Vow.
Yeah, I'm only switching gears to that.
Yeah. That was an exciting project to do. I did it with my wife and a number of big producers.
Oh, wow.
And then, Monster also deserves credit. These movies cost a lot of money to make.
Yes.
Because they take a lot of time, and they do not do it to make money. I'm going to leave it at that. I don't want to get into the finances, but they do it to support. We did a movie, Mitch and I, that's been well received, called Blink of an Eye, about NASCAR and Dale Earnhardt. And again, it was a complicated, difficult project. And when Dale Earnhardt died and Michael Waltrip won that race after losing for 16 all those years, Monster wasn't even in the sport. They did it as a give back to the sport of NASCAR. At that time, they were the title sponsor. And that was not about making money. That was not about really promoting the brand. The only monster in that movie is a tiny little logo on Michael's chest. That's it.
Wow.
You wouldn't even know that Monster was involved. They did it. Hey, we're in the sport. We want to support it. It's a great story. And Mitch, by the way, found that story, not me, and brought it to me. So I'm always super grateful to him.
Yeah, it's solid.
So since you mentioned it, I got to ask, what was the budget for your film? What was the budget?
Or how do you determine a budget? I mean, how do you even know what the heck this thing could cost? Even if you don't want to reveal the number, how do you even set?
Yeah. I mean, that's a pretty.
Oh, you look at you have buckets of money. You kind of know certain things. We're going to be in it. How many days of interviews are you going to do? Where are they going to be? Where's the studio going to be? So that's sort of your baseline, and then you have to figure music, talent, travel. It all comes together. So. Everyone's a little bit different, stock footage and, different things. So it's not, I can't really say the number, but
that's fair.
You come together because, unlike doing like when you do, more or less how many days of shooting are going to be involved. We have multiple cameras, as you can tell, on the set. And we bring in the top lighting people, top audio people, hair and makeup. Everybody gets a little bit of Hollywood treatment on it. So you kind of line it up that way. And then, frankly, once I come up with a number that Monster approves of, my job is to bring it in for that number. And I never go back to them for more. So I have to make sure that how many
it's a big, I can tell you this, it's a big, beautiful number that we will never get back.
There's a lot of big, beautiful people around.
I think a lot of people respect that, though. And Paul, you said a key thing that a very respectable businessman would say is, once I give you the number, I'm not coming back and asking. It's your job to bring it home for that number. And I think, heck, we're all kind of businessmen sitting here. We've been faced with that too. Here's the number. Now get it done. So I respect that you said that. I mean, that means a lot right there.
Well, it also means a lot that like you said, Mitch, Monster's not getting all that money. They're not getting that money back. And that's what is bringing, that's what we're like earlier. I was saying that's a lot of respect for you guys from the sport
to grow this,
to grow the sport, to do that thing for the love of it. And I mean, I tell you, it really means a lot to us as fans to see, that people really care about the sport and not only our sport, the surfing and everything NASCAR, you guys, all that you're involved with that.
Yeah. Well, Monster don't do traditional advertising. We don't buy TV commercials. Yeah. We're invested so heavily in sponsorship of athletes and properties, whether in whatever genre. And the only way that we can make them bigger and get more out of them is try to help make those properties cool and make the water level rise in those sports, and do it in a cool way that people, appreciate the fact we're associated with it, or ties to be associated with a cool sport. So it opens, really fortunate to get to work for a company that it lets you kind of be creative, because what Paul does is an art, and I mean there's science to it. Don't get me wrong; he'll tell you that he knows all about the science of it, but it's an art. I'm telling you, and it's being able to tell a story, and a heartfelt story that moves people, which is really what we want to do. And it's fun to make that kind of content, as opposed to making TV commercials, or how we're going to showcase our new product coming out next month. And so it's I'm thankful to get to work there, to get to kind of scratch this creative nerve here, right? Because it's a creative process.
Is there a
project? Business, I just want your audience to know we're in movie theaters now. We have an independent company that puts it in distribution. We're going to places in New York, and we're just in Boston. And anybody who's listening wants to see the movie, it will get to a streaming platform. For right now, it's still rolling out domestically and globally. And if you go to paydirtthemovie.com,
Okay.
and then click on screenings, you can see where it's playing. It's been in maybe 300 or 400 theaters for a couple nights here, and it sort of tours around the country. And Regal Theaters is one of our partners, so a lot of the Regal theaters it just plays. And it's a little bit of a different kind of release. It's very hard to get into movie theaters because the business is struggling, so they just want to put, the latest big busters, Star Wars and all that kind of stuff.
For sure.
But we have a great company that helps us get the distribution, and we're in the middle of a lot of discussions about the streaming platform, which will eventually be coming.
Okay.
What about, so since you said that, now we've seen the movie. We got to watch it. We got a link to watch it. But it's not in Atlanta around us anywhere. Our closest one was in Alabama. Right?
It's at Mitch's house in Alabama.
Yes, it was Mitch's house in Alabama, and we were going to drive over, but we heard he wasn't going to be in.
RJ's sleeping on his couch, so that's taken.
So, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so we'll do everything we can on our end to kind of direct some traffic that way. Pay Dirt, it's Pay Dirt the movie, and then go to screenings, correct?
Movie.com, and then go to screenings.
Okay.
And it is where it is. I can't, that's a difficult process as a company that does that. It's important. There are people, we've got a lot of people saying, why isn't it here? Why isn't it there? Sometimes people write in, it gets people to do it. And by the way, if someone wants to host a screening,
okay,
we would love
they
to.
can go to that. You can organize it, and there's the company called Monkey Wrench Films, and just contact them on Instagram is probably the best way to do it.
Okay.
We have Pay Dirt the movie there. By the way, that Instagram page, and a lot of little clips have gone out there. It's got like 2 million views.
Wow.
It's really amazing.
that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Nice.
Well, there's you think about it, that's a huge, Supercross is a huge market. And for you guys to be, it's a small market, but it's big in the sense that, when they go to Alabama, like you guys have a screen in Alabama, the Supercross will draw 40, 50,000 people there. That's a lot for Alabama. You know what I mean? The Georgia Dome used to bring 72,000 people or whatever. That's a lot.
Yeah,
So
there's a lot. Southeast is a hotbed for this.
and
so
those people are starved. People that like Supercross or love Supercross, they're starved for content. And I think this is an awesome
So
way.
thank you guys for your time. I do want to.
We could keep you here all night, but
Yeah,
I know
we
we
obviously
don't. You guys have got 10 million stories, and we would love to hear all of them. But I know at some point we gotta.
Yeah, I think we got most of the info out there. There's one thing, Mitch, sort of unrelated. What will it take for Monster to make Kawasaki send riders to the Motocross of Nations? Is that something Monster could lay down the hammer on?
Honestly, we try not to tell the people we sponsor what to do. We kind of let them run their business.
Yeah.
And that's a deep question, as you guys
I know.
know.
We don't
Everybody's
have to
got
sit here for the
different
whole
opinions on
thing.
it, right?
Just something I
Especially
wonder.
the riders, they all got a different opinion on it. And, we walk that line sometimes of, hey, man, we really want you to go to Motocross the Nations, and maybe we put, try harder to get them to go in some cases. And in some cases, we just look at it and say it doesn't make sense for this person, right? And so, but it's a great question. I wish I had a good answer.
Too heavy. I know. I don't want to end on a sour note.
John, that's like one of our favorite. Like we really support
our favorite
Team
event.
USA, and we love going to that race. That's
where
I
that's
do
coming
too.
from.
Hey, I'm with you guys. That's a special event, and my kid raced over there for a long
sure.
time.
Oh yeah, we know all
Yeah,
about
we
it
didn't even
for
get
sure.
to talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, we could keep you here all night, man. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah, so
We've got a whole nother 3 hours of talking to you about his racing career too.
We won't do that to you tonight. We're focused on Pay Dirt the movie. I think it's awesome, and we're looking forward to some screenings. And Monkey Wrench is the Instagram for if you would like to host a screening.
No, just Pay Dirt the movie. Pay Dirt the movie on Instagram, and then you can just send us a direct message or post a thing, and they'll respond to that.
Okay.
So Pay Dirt the movie.
And so Erica branched out, and she said that there's going to be screenings April 22nd and 23rd in the New Jersey area if anyone's around there, in like Syracuse, Orchard Park, North Brunswick. So go see it live.
Yeah,
this
yeah.
weekend.
Go see
hit
it. I think it'd be better on a big screen than on your phone or a
It was
computer.
pretty damn good on there. I can't wait to see it on a big screen.
Well, hey, good luck with it. I hope that the
We
thing
shot it
turns
for that,
something.
by the way. we actually went in a lot of trouble to shoot really cinematic stuff to give you a feeling that you cannot get in a small screen. And thank God Monster supported me to do it in a movie. When you see it, we spent the whole time editing it, on a small monitor. And the first time I saw it on a big screen, I saw stuff I never saw. It really shows the sport in a different way. So I really encourage people to see it on the big screen. And Josh's voice in those big speakers, holy cow, and the music and the sound of the motors is a lot of stuff there. So please see it in a movie theater.
Right on. Well, we'll do our best to send people to check it out, and we certainly appreciate the time, guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we love it.
Thank you, guys. It was great. Enjoyed doing it.
All right. See you later.
All right. Thanks, guys. Love y'all.
All right. See ya. Bye-bye.
They don't love us, man.
Hey, what the hell?
Hey,
Listen, those two guys you could have on for 17 hours.
They got some
stories.
stories.
We didn't even get into the movie stuff. Like, we're motocross, but we're all, freestyle is part of motocross, and then the surf community's closely related. There's a lot of crossovers.
he's listed
there.
as the creator of the X Games.
I mean, yeah. So and then the X Games, everybody that owns the dirt bikes watch the X Games. I mean, there's 1 million hours of content with that dude. Like, it's one of the things you don't realize. Like, everybody lives in your own little fishbowl, and you got to figure out how big your fishbowl is, just how big you can grow and what you can do and what you know. But you don't realize that a guy like that, we called him to talk about this one movie that's an hour and a half. But that guy's got a wealth of stories.
Man, I wanted to ask him about the vow so bad. I wanted to ask him about Channing Tatum, and I totally forgot.
Well, I saw the note, and I kept saying, I'll do it.
Yeah.
That's where I was headed with the 200 million
Channing
at the
Tatum
box
was
office.
in Supercross the movie. Paul produced The Vow, so there had been some conversation of moto. He was doing moto films at that point. I just wanted to kind of hear if Channing and him kind of cut up about moto. That'd be cool.
And then, Mitch being Thomas Covington's dad. I mean, Thomas Covington was a
Well,
badass.
I felt so embarrassed because I said, when is Kawasaki going to send riders to the motocross of nations? That's super out of character. And he goes, yeah, the motocross the nations is very important. Like, he sort of emphasized.
I call it D Nations.
Well, it doesn't matter. It's
D's
nations. But, I just, man, I could pick his brain for days only about GPs.
I didn't even know Mitch. I didn't even know that was Thomas's dad.
I just
didn't
want
even
to
know.
When he said I love that race, I wanted to be like, well, you want to go with me and John next year?
Yeah,
to
let's go.
France?
Yeah, could we fly in the private monster plane or whatever
like
over
the
there?
monster plane to France.
Yeah.
We'll pay for our ticket. We'll buy our own food.
Is that how he rolls, in a monster plane?
Dude,
everywhere?
I have no idea. I just
he
picture it being a blacked
probably
out
I have no
plane with
idea,
a
but just like
just a
the
logo.
green,
yeah, look it
The
up.
forks
I'm sure it's
running
on
down
there.
it.
Look up
Well,
the monster jet. I'm sure
Dude,
it's probably.
he's sitting there saying,
I found the two-stroke time machine bus in Decatur, Georgia. Totally off topic, but the two-stroke time
You
machine
found
bus has landed.
Is it like
It's a
the
month
mystery
early.
machine?
It's so sick. I'm going to post pictures on the page next week. Check it out. Two-stroke time machine has arrived a little early.
The two-stroke
but we're
time
here.
machine event is coming up. That's May 17th.
Yeah,
at Monster.
Mountain,
South
our
Which-
favorite place ever.
There are people who will argue that there are people in California that will argue that Monster is the best track in the nation.
Yeah, Pulp did it, so that was cool of Kiefer to kind of put us on the map a little bit. Shay, Keith, there's a great group of people.
The thing about Monster is they could have 20 riders there, and you can look at it and go, they're losing money today. But they will prep that thing as if 1,000 riders are there, and they will keep it up.
And they have like 10 tracks now, so it's in a woods and a GP section and Supercross track. It's
a lot.
GP track. I love riding that GP track on a vintage bike.
That place is heaven.
You
I
like
don't know
slamming
about it.
Mikey Edwards
Yeah, I
on
like-
that track.
Well, it's really good.
Oh, I
because
saw that. I saw you guys battling in slow-mo, dude, at the last two-stroke
Yeah,
time.
but he faked a missed break or something and just rails on.
I cleaned him, so I'm right out in the woods.
Was
Was
he
that
on
on
a
the
125?
I don't know. He was him or Bambi after I hit him and put him in the woods. Bambi. He was
Bambi in the woods.
Him and
again.
Bambi.
yeah.
Mikey, we tried to revisit that, but y'all just never
know.
crossed paths at Scrub and Dirt. So
Well, no, I saw him. He threatened me. It was cool.
Mikey's big to bow up
know.
on people.
He did, man. He was,
Edwards? Is that what you're talking
I'm
about?
kidding.
Or
Yeah,
somebody else?
No,
Oh,
he's the
okay,
king of
okay.
the 125.
Yeah.
That's why I asked if he was on a 125. For years, I just knew him as the king of the 125, and
I
then I,
think
found
he
out
may have
later.
sabotaged my 125.
Oh, dude, I could
Salt
totally
in the
see him
gas
doing that.
tank.
Yeah.
Oh, he's over there with some pliers or something. I saw him doing something.
Yeah.
So, yeah, two-stroke time machine's coming up. That's May 17th. Is it both days that weekend?
It's going to be May 17th, but 7MX is the doubleheader, so it'll be a big one. We're literally Two-Stroke Time Machine is just a race there. It's all about 7X. They're out there all weekend.
That's
We're going to be
Southeast
doing it
Vintage
big.
Motocross. Yes.
Yep. Alan used to be out there doing his thing. Seth, Bob,
So,
Mark, everybody.
do you are you going to do anything in May? You going to ride any?
You guys better come.
Yeah.
You guys better come to
Yeah,
this
I think
race.
I think
If
I
you're
can
not
be
busy,
there. Thankfully, it's
please
not
come.
Memorial
you
Day
don't have
weekend.
to pay
We're
to
going
race.
to
I'm going
this.
to just let you race.
I don't even care about paying. I'm going to pay.
Do Jake's for sure. They will do the.
I want them to do it backwards, the GP track backwards this
I've
year.
done it.
That'd
Yeah, I've
just
done it
be-
backwards.
And they were training on it a couple weeks ago backwards, and it was so
It's
good.
pretty
So
awesome.
It's a different flow, but it's fun, and it's something different for us. I don't think the vintage guys would have any problems with it. So
Yeah.
let's run it backwards.
I can
Calling
see
that out right now,
I
Keith.
bet
So if
coming
you hear
off
me,
that, coming out of that sweeper, going over the finish line backwards down that hill into that turn would be fun.
Dropping down. Yeah, that'd be
and
pretty
and there's
cool.
like cool rollers that kind of develop in reverse too. So it's
Yeah.
because that's the
So we're
sandier portion of the track down there.
I'm going to do that. Then we got.
Maybe it won't rain this year.
Yeah.
We tried to go there last time and it just poured.
That's when I met you guys for the
Yeah,
first time
that's right.
ever. And 10 minutes later, our canopies were destroyed, flipped upside down. I cracked my windshield.
That was a harsh day, son. That was some heavy
Kendall's
weather.
barbecue pit, easy up, flew into the truck. It was a day, and then 20 minutes later, the sun's back out and we're racing. So that's monster for you.
I'm going to ride Saturday. I'm going to Scrub Saturday, so we're doing
Hell
this.
yeah.
And I've been really working, like trying to change, like we were at the last race and everybody's going in and I listen to the pros talking about adjusting their suspension. So I've been trying a different suspension setting like every day.
Are you feeling differences at this
Every
point?
day, like are you riding this much and not calling me? Is that,
No. I don't think the pros do that. I mean, I'm just changing my
Not every day,
settings
every
every
lap they
day.
do it.
Like when I go out through the garage in the morning, I'll turn a couple clicks in, on the compression, maybe a little bit out on the rebound. And I'm keeping up with it. I got a notebook. I'm keeping up with it. And then after I change my suspension settings, I'm just checking this. Then I make notes about how my day went. Right.
okay. Yeah.
So
was it a good day with it?
Yeah. So if I go in on compression and I have a really good day at work and everything went well, I know that's a good setting. So I keep
So you
that
got a
setting. You know
logbook
what I mean?
going. You need to
Yeah.
get the tracks and everything. You need to have
So
it dialed.
no tracks.
Are you
really.
say you're just adjusting the suspension and not riding the bike?
Yeah. Isn't that what everybody does?
Oh, okay. All right,
I'm just like, yeah.
on another
So
level.
if it rains, I adjust the suspension a
Want
little
to
bit.
lighten her up a little
Then
bit.
I get in my truck, I go to work, and I see how my day went. So if I have a day where I made a lot of money, I'm like, hell, that's a good setting. So I'm like, mark that, highlight it, and this and that. Or if I set it and I get lucky with my
Knock
lady,
the bottom out of it,
I
yeah.
get lucky with my lady. That's a good day.
That's it. You always put like a star by that one.
Yeah, so I
Like,
put a star by that one. So I've got
that's a win.
That's
That's like
good. Cause and
it's a
effect.
win.
Control
All the
and
other
rebound.
stuffs, and then you check to see is it leading to a win? The win is, knocking the bottom out of the old lady.
That's right. Running a couple of motos with that. Yeah.
Yeah, running some motos on your old lady.
Yeah. So
Amen.
then
Finally.
if I get and if it gets bad, and I've done this for 6 months, and I go back and I say, well, I can always go back. I go on a dry spell. I can always go back to last year's settings.
Yeah, you stiffen up that
Just
compression.
Just
dude.
like the pros.
Yeah.
And,
Pros get lost in testing. They don't know what day's up, what day's
Just go
down.
back. Yeah.
Just go back to last year. Start over, baseline. I don't think this is what they mean. I think they're actually riding the bike after these adjustments. But, I mean, you twist them clickers.
Tomato. I
Yeah.
think we can agree to disagree.
You twist them clickers, Nick.
You start
That's-
messing with that high speed compression, you're in trouble though. You be careful.
Yeah,
over
be
there,
careful on that.
Yep.
Hey, we got a ton of good feedback from Shane Nally.
cool.
I did not hear about him at the Perry Mountain Tower run,
Stuff on things.
but he was there. We did get a report from Greg Day with a counter. It was 12 stuff on things and 9 stuff on it's at the riders meeting, and he actually sent a video. I need to show you this video, Jake.
Stuff on it? What?
So the dude gets up before the
riders meeting.
Yeah, the riders meeting, and he'll go, "Now listen, boys, you're gonna go down in them woods and you're gonna turn right. It's gonna fork. You take that right fork, stuff on it. That's your pro section, stuff on things. You ain't gonna want to go in there if you ain't a pro, and if I catch you in there, it's a big problem, stuff on it." Like, he throws the word stuff, the phrase stuff on it or stuff on things in these places that make no flipping sense.
And
And when you first
Taters
hear
and
it,
gravy.
you're
what?
like, you'll see people kind of look to the right, look to the left.
after the third step on things, John and I looked at each other, and I was like,
Count.
It's like a tick of
Am I
his.
missing this?
He can't help it.
Count these. Nick's like looking at me, count them. And I'm back there, oh my God, 1, 2. You got to track it on both hands because stuff on it's your left hand, stuff on things is your right hand.
Then you run out, you got to pull your shoe off so you can count your toes.
Danny Roberts, this is his favorite thing. He's out of Florida and he did stuff on things. He was the first one to like truly understand. My wife thinks I'm making it up. She's like, he's saying something else and you're misunderstanding him.
Nope.
Absolutely not.
No.
This is what he said. So I have video proof now. Thank goodness.
I can't wait to see it.
Greg filmed it.
Can you imagine, since we weren't there, how much banana pudding they had left over?
God, 2 or 3 kiddie pools. They made. You think I'm kidding, dude?
Did they have vanilla wafers? That's all.
Oh,
I
yeah.
needed.
Yeah.
That shit was good. It was for real banana pudding.
That's
Like,
a great
that's
event.
good.
Number one, you get to ride a national enduro course. They feed you lunch and dinner both days.
Yep.
Nice.
It's like
it was-
super well done. I think the weather
They
was probably
literally had a.
So Shane was going to come, didn't come.
No,
No,
he
Shane
wrote- he
went to
wrote
that.
it.
We
He
did.
did.
Shane Nally did, but we didn't get to go this year. And but last year they literally had a kiddie pool full of banana pudding.
Not even, and they're just loading Nick up. He goes, "Yeah, I like banana
I probably
pudding."
ate a third
Is
of
it
it.
on the? Is it on the ground or is it on a table? Is it like
It's up
a
high. They're not
display?
like reaching down on the
Is it
ground
waist high, or are
scooping.
you just like getting in there? Like
Go down there, stick your foot in
Like
there,
it's a Jell-O
dip your
pool
bowl
and
in
you're
there,
wrestling.
son.
It's-
Yes.
Yeah, it's a banana pudding
You're my
wrestling.
boy,
Crazy.
Blue.
No, and I know this story's been told on this show before, but we go to the thing, and so
That's good. I haven't heard it. So.
I'm a banana pudding connoisseur. Like I am,
He knows his banana pudding,
and I'm
son.
very particular about it. If it's not good banana pudding, I'm out.
Yeah.
Right?
All right.
So I taste it before I get through all the way through the line, and I'm like, that's for real banana pudding. Like somebody's done their job, especially with that kind of quantity, right? So I get 2 bowls, okay? So I've got barbecue and 2 bowls of banana pudding. So we sit down and we're
No,
talking.
but you mentioned to the lady.
Yeah, well, we're
you
talking-
tell her like, "Hey, I love banana pudding."
Yeah, I was like, I'm a banana pudding snob, and this is pretty good banana pudding, right? And she's like, well, it should be. It's good. So we go sit down, and then we're talking to this couple, big old guy with overalls, Big Bo, I think's his
Big
name.
Bo, yeah.
Yeah, Big Bo's his name. And his wife's sitting there. And so I'm finishing my second bowl of banana pudding. I'm talking about heaping bowls, right? Like I can, I'm
And
an
this
eater.
is after riding the national enduro course. It's not like
He's hungry.
he's
Yeah.
hungry, but it's not like your stomach didn't just have the crap beat out of it for 8 hours.
So
Maybe loading her or overloading her.
Big Bo's like, so you like that banana pudding there, boy? And I said, yeah, I do. I said, I'm kind of funny about banana pudding. And Big Bo got me 2. Well, he goes, you can thank this lady right here, and it's his wife. She made the kiddie pool
She's
full
got
of
the
banana
recipe,
pudding,
yeah.
right? Big Bo, we keep talking. He comes back with 2 more big bowls of banana pudding.
Not big bows.
big bowls.
Bowls.
Hands them to me. I ate 6 bowls of banana pudding.
Dude was having trouble.
After a whole day of riding.
He kept
racing.
bringing it to me, and his wife was just staring at me, and I felt so bad.
What do you think about this bowl? You
Yeah,
like this? And this is
I
probably
could-
better than that last one.
I could not eat it. Like I was banana.
Yeah,
pudding.
they were
grandma
like
feeding.
they were. It was like their moment of truth. Like finally some recognition, and they just sit there and watch Nick scoop by scoop as he's taking bites. He had trouble walking back, man.
It was tough. That's
to the
most-
camper.
And I'm talking about 6 cereal bowls heaped with banana pudding. This is after, because I'm an eater, right? So I already had a freaking.
Yeah, he
pile.
didn't go easy on the barbecue leading
Yeah.
up to this, you know.
Oh, it was-
But where I was headed with the Shane Nally thing, so got tons of comments about his just raw honesty, man. Just tell it like
It
it
was
is.
so good. That was.
I think that's ultimately what we appreciate the most, right? Is these behind the scenes stories. You would never hear this.
They didn't sugarcoat it. He has nothing to hide. He has
Well,
no one to
and that's
speak
Nope,
to Monday
nobody
morning,
cover
right?
for, yeah,
he doesn't
nothing.
care.
and that's
He's
kind
done
of
his job. Move
with Paul and Mitch having them on tonight. That's kind of cool that they got that out of that movie as well.
To get Jeremy to say
Yeah.
that Jeff Emig makes trashy decisions or whatever.
Yeah, you
is
got
a
Jeremy
great
to talk.
line.
You got Jeremy to talk a little smack. That's
You expect it
That's
out of
big, you know.
Hannah.
Yeah.
The king of Supercross in him still, just
Yeah.
speaking truth.
you know what? And Brock Glover was still super nice. Like that dude.
I couldn't imagine just going, he's an asshole then, he's an asshole now. And just because he's nice. He's
Yeah, it's just so funny to hear that from him and then know your background with winners and you guys, like how tight you guys are. So it's kind of funny.
How tight. Yeah, Nick just grabs his hair and messes. Dude, Brock's
he
got
messes
perfect
his
hair.
calling him out, getting on the plane, let Brock by.
Hey,
What's next?
Brock is still a super cool guy. And like, I hope I look like that when I'm whatever
Dude,
the fuck he
I
is.
think
How
he's
old?
65 or
Yeah.
so.
He's older. I mean, he's still the
But
cool
he still
dude.
fits
You
in
can
his gear
tell.
from those years, whatever years, you know.
Oh, he looks great, but you can tell that Bob Hanna was his hero.
Yeah.
Was his everything, and it still hurts him. You can tell.
Until
That's probably
he
why he's
wasn't.
so upset that
Yeah.
Paul put it in the film, because he
Yeah.
was like, he's butthurt.
So
And-
if Glover had been on a Honda, he still won 6 championships. That's what I've got in my head. That's the number. I think it's 6. What would he have done if he was on a Honda and not on that beat out, clapped out YZ
You know, you got to think about that. Like, if you win 6 championships on
on an against Bailey's
and
Works
I'm
bike?
not saying now. I'm just saying in the 80s.
Bailey's Works Honda.
It's-
Come on.
With factory bikes in the 80s, Hondas were
Head and shoulders above.
just like they were in 90s.
Brock's
Yeah, Hannah said
490
you
was
can let
air
all
cooled.
the air out of our tires,
just
and we'll
like
still
they're-
beat you all
yeah.
the day or something. And that's the guys on the street
That's
probably
true.
like.
Yeah, like just like Jeremy in 92 to 96.
Those were great motorcycles.
You know what I mean? Like they,
Honda Head and Shoulders.
Oh, yeah, the
you
Works
know, in the late
85.
70s, Yamaha had their time, and you
Yeah.
know what I mean. But
Well,
when-
and that's when Hannah won a lot of his championships,
Yeah.
all his championships, really, I
and
guess.
just think if Brock Glover had been on a Honda.
Yeah,
Just
dude.
think if he'd been riding a CR500 instead of that air cooled.
Was he Golden Boy Yamaha his entire
Yeah.
career, right?
The
Yeah.
whole career.
Okay, that's pretty
I think,
cool.
did he
have
ride
a
a-
mini ride? Was he like one of the first mini?
He rode a
mini
Honda.
Yami guys?
He rode a Elsinore.
or I guess Dogger would have been, right?
I think he rode for DG as an
Oh,
amateur,
DG, yeah.
and maybe number 533 is
Hey,
what
let
I've
me
got.
tell
Shout
you
out to
something.
John wearing the DG.
They really,
Gotta
like,
get that in my head.
I know that they know better than me. I couldn't leave Ron Lachine out of anything. I don't care what happened. I would have
He
had
got
that.
barbecue sauce on one of these helmets. I mean, I want to talk to the dude.
He was here.
No. I took that helmet to
Oh, when you guys
somewhere, some motocross donations.
But he was, I mean, that's an interesting story. Like
I want the outtakes. Maybe we can butter up Paul and be like, dude, give me that.
Yeah,
footage.
give me
Yeah,
Let's
let's hear the
share it.
outtakes for
I
Let's
Lachine.
promise you.
Yeah, we got to get Lachine on here because
If Lachine
he-
told it
his
all, there's no
stories.
telling.
yeah.
Why
Oh,
can't
yeah.
we get the Dogger on? Have you
He's-
had the Dogger
he's
on?
busy.
No, yeah.
He's
Yeah.
the head of Maxima. I
Did
don't
you
think
see
it's
my
easy.
Lachine
Fair
picture?
Yeah. Dude, it's sick. Yeah.
I don't remember
I
that.
saw
The
a
one-
couple of them.
For when I was 15 or 16 or
Yeah,
whatever.
you look just like the Dogger, basically.
Oh, yeah, I remember that now. Okay.
I want to share those. Yeah, and well, I mean, it's not better than the Batman wheelie photo. That's probably the best one I've ever seen in my life.
That is a bad to the bone
like
photo.
you are, like I showed that to my son. He's like, "Oh my god!" I wanna
now
be
he knows Batman can ride
and now
motorcycles.
he thinks that I just like go see Batman every week. I'm just like,
that's
"Yeah,
cool.
dude."
Hey, who took that? Like, is that some photographer for the Six Flags?
That was a girl, Loretta Curtis, that was a tech.
Okay.
There. And she just had her camera taking pictures
You
one
still
day.
have know her today.
Yeah, that's that. Yeah, she.
Wow,
she.
that's
I
cool.
still
Well, that's a
talk to her.
great photo, dude. Does she know this thing's still getting played?
Yeah, when the first time it ever got posted, somebody posted it and I put photo credit Loretta Curtis. Like
Yeah.
she got
Yeah.
that.
Well, dude, it's hard to find. Every time we look through our phones, we always spend a long time looking for it. So I created a folder named Batman, and that's the
Nice.
only picture in the photo or folder.
We
So
need more.
And
Yeah,
Loretta
you
was-
are Loretta Curtis.
He's still got
We
the
need more
suit, dude.
photos.
We could have him suit
So
up.
Loretta was my.
No way. Can we do this at Two Stroke
She
Time Machine?
tell
Can you do
you.
a parade lap? Can you lead the parade lap?
Hey, there's
I gotta
no
cut
way
this
you're
off
not
right now.
bulkier.
You and
now.
Shay will probably be
bigger.
naked, but you could be in a Batman suit. You guys could do the parade lap together.
It'd be hilarious, dude.
Loretta worked with me later. Like she worked actually worked with my business now for a while. But Loretta would always go do these cons like Dragon Con, Comic Con,
Oh yeah.
whatever cons are everywhere. You know, she traveled and did that. It's her thing. She loves it. And so whenever I would introduce her at work to somebody, I would say, "Hey, this is Loretta. You know, she's been with me. We've worked together. We've known each other for 25 years, and she's taken my clothes off more than any other woman." Right? And it was just embarrassing.
That's not
Batman.
awkward. It's cool.
Because she, you know, when I would come in between scenes, she was the
Trying
one
to
that
snatch
would,
that rubber
so
suit off.
nasty and
she-
sweaty and
well,
just.
I started the show in a tuxedo, right? And so then when I would go off, it was a tearaway tuxedo. So she would start
She-
taking the
Party boy
jacket
style?
off, and I would always act like I was a stripper and rip
Snatch
the
the
pants
pants.
off.
Yeah,
so-
dude.
And so Loretta changed my clothes and dressed me a whole lot. So that would always embarrass her and do that. She's a
Yeah, I
good-
think
she's
you
a
got to
good
hit
girl.
them. You can't if that embarrasses her. You got to do.
Yeah, I would do it all the time. And then when there was at one of her cons, she was working with the guy that was Susan Sarandon's husband in Rocky Horror Picture Show. That guy. So she brought me back at like a 8, because at those shows they just have 8x10.
The main actor is Susan Sarandon's husband?
The in the Rocky Horror Picture Show, Susan Sarandon's in it, and her husband in the movie.
Oh,
so not her real husband.
Not her real husband.
Oh.
He's in the movie as
say,
well.
Okay.
So there's a picture of him and Susan Sarandon. He signed it, something to me, and he said, "P.S. I still look better than you naked."
That's a stretch.
Yeah.
I don't believe that for a second. I mean, Nick looks really good.
So then
naked.
I flew to California and kicked the shit out of him.
Yeah, and then and you can't get reimbursed
Naked.
for these flights. Yeah.
Naked.
You almost got kicked out.
I know, and then they would not let me deduct that on my taxes.
So I noticed you brought up Mammoth upstairs.
Yes, because I'm going to force you and your wife to go.
She doesn't mind going, but dude, you can just feel it in her brain. We got a graduating senior in this class. That is it. That's all we can work on. This one track mind around here.
Why. Well, I'm going to just send me a
When's Mammoth?
copy of
June,
late June,
like
27th.
19th, Thursday to Thursday.
That's a month
like
after
19th.
she graduates.
That's what I said. We kind of need to plan it now. I would like to go back.
Hey,
I mean,
so you get me a copy of, text me a copy of both y'all's license, and I'll just buy the plane tickets.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it'll be Thursday to Thursday.
I don't. Yeah, that.
Me too, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Jake, do you want to race it? Maybe next year. Maybe it's not.
No, I don't know. I mean, it does seem.
I just throw that at you,
tight.
but you got a tiny little kid, so
I have a tiny little kid.
It's awesome though.
I took a couple of years before I circled backing. I took
It
like
would be
4
cool to
years.
bring them, but that's a whole nother.
Then he did something totally different than what we did. The first time you went, took a trip.
drove there.
You drove there.
Factory ride? Was that the factory ride?
Not the first time.
No,
The first time I took my motorcycles.
First time he was totally privateer. Last year
was his factory.
factory
I didn't
as
have
it
to
gets.
do anything.
Hey, we showed up.
That
with
sounds like fun. Yeah.
Hey, we showed up with a gear bag.
We rolled our gear bags in there, left them at the trailer. We come walking in empty-handed every day.
Yep.
And just motorcycles on the stand.
Walk us through this real quick. I'm sure that we've heard it before.
So it's Kurt Nickel.
Kurt Nichols, of course.
3 or 4 time second in the world in the 500cc GPs.
Broke
He
the
is
United States Motocross of Nations.
broke the streak for Team USA
the Motocross D Nations.
at the Motocross des Nations 94
Beat
with
Jeff
Paul
Emmett.
Malin on the team. Kurt stopped that win streak, dude. And so he has a champion factory, a champion MX, I guess, or champion factory.
Champion MX. I'd have to look at the
Champion
picture.
MX. So bike rental service. He just shows up with new KTMs and he's like, "What number you want on your bike?" And he'll ask your weight,
Have your graphics ready and everything.
speed.
You get there.
It's 100%
dial.
yours when you get there.
Oh, SAG, everything. You get there, they said that SAG.
So when you get there, are you just gearing up and getting on the bike? You got a mechanic? Like what's
You
the
got it.
deal?
You have a mechanic, and you will not lift the bike off the stand or put it on the stand yourself. He will do it for you.
Well, that's good because you're real tired after a mow. You don't wanna
Especially
lift
at
that
9,000 feet elevation, dude. It's
it
hard.
hit
So,
you?
so it didn't this past year. But in 19, my wife made a good point. She goes, in 19, you rode like you still had to get your truck and trailer from California back to Georgia. I mean, I was gone for 5 weeks on
Champion
that trip.
MX.
Champion
That's what it's
MX.
called,
It was the coolest thing last year. It took all the weight.
that's-
There's a
that
000
looks
right there at
good.
Mammoth,
000.
man.
I mean, you show up with 000 bikes sitting there, and you're like, "Oh,
That's
shit."
bad to
this
the
is
bone
big.
under a big long awning
think
full
it's
of
mine.
KTMs. But
Yeah.
it takes all the weight off of you. I mean, I promise you, I rode way better simply because if
At
I
ease.
didn't have to get anything home on Monday.
You were focused.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
had to ride, man. It was the simplest. I didn't lube a chain. I didn't adjust anything. I didn't do one thing but put on your
Tire
gear.
pressure, nothing.
Yeah, you might mention, hey, you want to double check that tire pressure because Mammoth is known for these square edge curbs, and up that long hill at the start straight,
It's
there's
choppy
There's these
going up?
angled, hard square curbs that you hit those things and it's going to send you. I was worried about a flat.
That track's pretty soft, except for when you go up that hill. It's because
That
everybody,
start looks terrifying.
everybody floors.
It's scary.
Well,
Because you see so many wipeouts too. Like you see
yeah.
some.
Well, you
some
go up there.
enders.
Here's the scarier than that is it's high. Like when you get to the top.
When you
of
get
that
to the
thing,
top and turn, you come straight back down.
you're
man.
looking off a 10. Even though it's not that, you're looking off a 10,000-foot mountain. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's
dropping
high.
in together.
You can see that whole valley down
And
through
so
there.
when you're going
that's
up the
cool.
hill, everybody going up the hill, even after the start, you put it to the floor, right? So where everybody's shifting, there gets a ridge in that thing. It's like a curb, like literally
It'll bite. You'll see it bite people. They'll get tired, and the rear end will step out hard on them, and they'll just
and they'll crash. You
high
know, you
side.
don't see people crash going uphill much. That curb will high side them.
Yeah,
going uphill.
it's gnarly. It's a fun event. The area is so
It looks
epic.
soft on top, but kind of hard base, right? It's kind of
It's hard base. Yeah,
It'll rut up. They get rutted
yeah.
up. You know,
yeah.
wasn't
Nice.
bad.
It's not. It's just California. It's not like we get ruts.
right.
But
They get ruts,
everybody's
but they're
there to have a blast. There's super fast guys there. There's
And
a
you
ton
got some
of
bears
events.
out of the deal. I'm looking at them right now. That's pretty cool. That's
Yeah.
the reason I really want. I just want a bear.
Well, that's Nick's goal
That's a
this
pretty
year.
big goal,
Yeah,
but
I gotta
I
get
do
it.
want a bear.
Oh,
I
wanna
think it's
vote.
totally possible. I think it's totally
Maybe
possible.
in like 4 or 5 years, I'll go back in 40,
I'm gonna
and then
go-
it'll be a
I'm-
little bit more possible.
I'm getting me
Yeah.
a bear this
I
year.
mean, who knows? It is hard in those younger age groups.
Dude, 30 is gnarly.
I'm
I
getting me a
will
bear
say
this
it, and
year. I don't
it's
care
'cause
what
I'm
happens.
Well, you've
36
got
now,
pros
but-
that are still relevant in that class.
Yeah, and I think there's a what is it like?
There's divisions.
Pros can't race certain classes, 30 plus
Yeah, yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
20,
there's certain
25, I think they run Loretta's, but still, even 30, like, dude, those are dudes that just never got a top 20 in them.
Yeah, it doesn't mean they're
Overall,
slow.
They still got points, and they're still bad dudes.
Yeah, like the 45 at Loretta's is a sportsman. There's a 30-plus sportsman
Yeah.
and a
Yeah,
or
those two
35-plus sportsman.
those two classes can't have national
Yeah.
champs and stuff like that.
Yeah, but
I saw an old photo of Gruey, and it was like Gruey coming in 25, 35, and 40 plus, and now it's
Gruey-
like 52. Like that dude's racing like 4.
He doesn't look like he could get like he doesn't appear to you that he's about to dominate you, John Gruey. That dude can lay it down.
He
is
he's
fast.
the diesel, yeah.
Yeah, he never ever he is charging just as hard in the first lap as he is on the last. So the guy's
Conserving
solid.
energy, not flashy, just getting it done.
Just smooth and
Yeah.
gets it done, man, for
So-
sure. So if you got two-stroke time machine coming up, Mammoth coming up, you're going to adjust your suspension clickers in the morning.
Mid-Ohio's coming
Yep.
too. Yeah.
Mid-Ohio, yep.
I'm really excited about Mid-Ohio this year. Mid-Ohio that is a
Well,
fun-
we're going to have our race weapons instead of these woods weapons on the
yeah,
motocross
we're
track.
coming home with a plate this year.
It's gonna be interesting.
John's going to win this year.
We'll see. We're going to go for it. And
Nick's
then
gonna win too.
Nick helped us carry the starting gate sections. We have 2 more to build. I think we'll finish the Great Escape.
I can tell you
Yeah, Rhett's
this.
doing a great job.
This
It's looking
week.
good.
I think Great Escape's one of the best races of the year. There is no doubt that we're going to have the nicest starting gate in the country.
Well,
I don't think Feld has a nicer starting gate than what we're about to have.
I've been going
It's
around
custom.
filming all the starting gates so that I make sure I build this. Well, my son's building it, but let's make sure he does it right. Hey, man, here's how they did this. I just show him.
Yeah, for real. We were at Day in the Dirt, and we were like at Dade City, like inspecting the gates.
But
They're
now-
rusting out. We can't do this. Can't do that.
But
Like,
now
we got it
that
down.
I've filmed all these, I have evidence that Nick's right. This
Oh,
gate
this
at Great
is going to be
Escape,
the best freaking gate. I'll bet you the one they use for Supercross isn't as good as the one.
it's probably.
When do we get to test the gate? Not till
I
we
think
drop
next
it in,
week.
right?
No,
Are we going to drop it
Well,
in next week?
Yeah,
or
I want it out of my
Are we
garage.
testing gate right out here or what?
No, we're gonna put it.
Are we
in.
we're
going to
gonna
the
go
pit
there.
track or are we going to the Great Escape?
We're going to take it. We're going to take it, put it in the Great Escape track.
'Cause I'm
and then
ready
we're
for
just
it.
going to go there
Rip
twice
starts.
a week and practice starts.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just going to burn out a tire a week just
Could you
ripping
imagine
starts.
if we went there and just worked on
Oh, it'd be
starts?
so dry and dusty.
It don't matter.
Don't matter.
We'd be to the first turn first.
That's
If we
right.
practice starts, we never practice starts
No.
ever. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
look at that pin.
No,
Gotta-
don't look at the pin.
Gotta
Don't
walk the track with Emig.
don't look at
yeah.
Andy
Alright,
Alexander
and you
stomping his
gotta-
foot.
Correct.
You know, because he will psych you out sometimes and act like he's kicking the gate. And then
I
he
really
won't.
do watch the pin. I'm loyal.
I
to
watch the pin, too.
Yeah.
The pin's fine. You just can't. There was a guy at the Great Escape watching Andy's foot because he could see the hesitation when he was starting to stomp the pedal. Well, he was clued in that this guy was watching his foot. So one of the motos, he started to go and he stopped, and that dude just rammed the gate, and then he stomped it and dropped it. It was pretty good.
Tell them
So-
not to do that this time. Those are our gates.
Yeah, I don't
this
think
year,
they'll
those are
bend,
our-
dude. They're drawn over
You try to
mandrel.
break this gate, you got a problem.
This
son.
thing's solid.
They're
So
not going
Need
anywhere.
another wheel.
yeah,
This
exactly.
thing's will be cracking wheels. This thing's, I mean, it's on point.
So
I'm
it
excited
was.
to Great Escape. What's the date? October 17th, 18th? Is
yes,
that right?
That's exactly right.
Let's get it.
So
It's
that's
going to be big.
So there's things on the horizon. spring is finally here. We're sick of.
We got a couple of dual sport rides I think are going to sprinkle in there too. Plus, we're going to New Mexico.
New Mexico for 1,000, probably 900 miles actually. It's not 1,000. Yeah, there's things on the horizon. Things are looking good. So, sorry, Kevin, that you're not here. Sorry,
I just
that
got
you're
a text
suffering in Las Vegas.
from somebody out there that said Kevin had a wardrobe malfunction and he lost an otter in an accident.
That sounds like
Enjoy the
PETA.
World Mini.
PETA. I mean, he's calling it World Mini, but we know.
We know.
We know
That's a cover. He's going out there. His lifelong dream.
Who needs Vaseline at World Mini? I mean,
Yeah.
Who packs Vaseline?
He's all Vaselined up.
Mini Winnie. I don't know.
It's
If
Kevin,
the-
Siegfried, and Roy. He's got. I mean, it's been a dream of his to do a Vegas show, animal
Yeah.
show like that.
Yeah, it's been his whole goal the whole time.
Well,
That's
I
why
mean,
he's
tell
always
you,
working on his jazz hands.
When Siegfried and Roy went down with the tiger ate him or whatever the hell happened to him, Kevin was devastated.
And Kevin thought, now's my chance.
Yep.
He really did. He
He
saw
was
it as an
devastated, but he did see an opening.
Yeah.
He's ruthless like that.
So we need some feedback. When Kevin's here, everybody's an alcoholic. When Kevin's not here, no one even thought about like really pounding the fireball, right? We didn't even get it out.
We didn't pound the fireball.
So we didn't even get it out. That's right.
It's basically Kevin.
Well, at the end of the Shane Nally show,
Influencer. Kevin. Kelley.
John and Kevin, I don't know remember the
we had no idea what was going on.
they're into that show.
Because Kevin just
I got
keeps
a couple
pouring
comments I will say on the page. A couple messages and comments about that last
about
little
tasting like
portion.
copper.
Yeah.
Yeah,
About the
copper,
copper
dude. That
portion.
was
That was the
Ah.
DH, the designated host. That was the one that stayed sober enough to,
you watched out for
to
us.
bring us home. Yeah.
You really watched out for us.
I
I'm
really
thankful
do.
for you, Nick.
So
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening. If this show sucks, you can let us know.
complain to Kevin.
Yeah, you can send everything to Kevin and say, hey, man, these dudes need to
Please come back.
drink more Fireball or you need to come back, one or the other. But thank you to Paul Taublieb and Mitch Covington.
Yeah.
Pay Dirt, the movie. Look it up. Go see it. That's most important. You need to go spend some
It's
money on
good.
this thing
It's
and
really
watch
good.
it. Help them recover some of their investment. So thank you guys. Have a good night.
Yep. Love y'all.
Peace.